That's like slightly too much light for me, you know? I gotta like turn the light off. 1 second. That'll do. Okay. The hardest part about being a female for myself is the hair. I just, you know? I need a professional. Okay. We about to get real serious, guys, and we are continuing on our journey from last day, which it was yesterday. Now, I guess it really wouldn't be too much. Sorry guys, it's a one-man show here, so sorry it's taking me 1,000 years today to actually get the show on the road here. But yeah, I'm literally trying to do it all, and I should just be focusing on the material. You know, that's what I'm good at, the material. Everything else is kind of just teaching a fish how to swim, which is easy, but not teaching a fish how to climb a tree. What it do, y'all? Can y'all hear me okay? Like this? Can y'all hear me okay? Perfect. Just let me know if I need to speak up. Should I speak up a little bit more? I'll try to speak up a little bit more. Okay. Well, we're going to have the loveliest time together because we're continuing our continuation station on the commandments with many other things. So, I'll go ahead and get started. I really hope that you guys are enjoying this series. It's been extremely fun for me to put together. All of these series have been fun for me to put together. So, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the hearts. Already at 2K? Y'all. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. That's literally, you guys are saying, oh yeah, 2K likes just for existing. because I haven't even delivered yet, so that's really kind. I really appreciate that. That's very, very kind. I feel seen. I feel seen. And do know I see you too. I see you in a non-creepy way. So, I want to first start with... What do I want to first start? I do want to first start with recapping a little bit on the number 10. And I'm going to go ahead and read that just from a numerology book. It says that number 10, again, is completion. 10 commandments, complete in themselves. 10 Sphirot in the Tree of Life, complete in themselves. And in number 10, we meet 0, which is an unmanifested force. Now, after it has evolved through the 9 digits, now the first differentiation is number 1, standing beside 0. Ready to begin a new series of manifestation on higher cycle of evolution. In the beginning, it's so funny when I hear that. In the beginning, there was light. In the beginning, with 1, we evolve until we reach 5 of manhood, which is essentially just saying it's like the 5 pointed stars, right? We've got like the 4 limbs plus the head is kind of like a star. Now, at this point, we become aware of Christ force 6 and begin to reach upward in evolution until we attain our initiation in 9. In the key 10, we are essentially completion. Whole in itself. Again, binary code. Thank you guys for being here. Now, we're going to start a little bit with my boy Toddle. Y'all know him as Aristotle. My jokes are like sort of hilarious. Okay, and I thought that it was quite interesting how he said that living a happy life is an activity. It's something you do. It's something you choose to do. We always think that happiness comes outside of us, but it really does start from within with a choice. Now, it's a pursuit of what one does and what one acts on. Stoddle, our boy Stoddle, also says it's tied to morals. Okay, you cannot have Aristotle, our boy, right? Sure, Aristotle, Ari Toddle Bottle, Waddle. He says you cannot have happiness without morals. I wonder why that is. Well, we'll probably be able to answer that question quite well after our entire series here, because this is what it's all about. This is what a divinely led life is all about. So, happiness is a state of character, it's a state of being, it's a state of doing, it's a state of acting. I'm not sure why I'm putting emphasis on the g, but you understand. Now, being a moral person, essentially what Aristotle says is it's not just being moral, it's also having a backing of substance to support you. So what is that going to look like? Okay, family, friends, a good living situation, right? Because you can't just be extremely crazy happy if you don't have the foundation of the 3D. Doesn't mean you have to be crazy rich, right? But you have to be able to, of course, having your necessities in life. Bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. Bare necessities? Not sure. That's great. Y'all put it in the chat if You're liking this session so far? Okay, anyways, so, yeah, essentially, I found this connecting to the Declaration of Independence, right? Only W's, only dubs in the chat, only dubs. Now, in the Declaration of Independence, y'all, I am going to get this out. Thank you for joining. Welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here. Welcome. Should I start at 8 instead of 7:30? Because you guys let me know. It does take some time before our peeps, like our peoples, our souls jump on. So I'm like, is that just the algorithm, or is that like, should I start a little bit later? And also sometimes, I don't know, I probably should have just put it as 8 today, but I can never, for some reason, I'm not very good at understanding when I need to get ready, because that's what always takes the longest, is getting ready with all this. Putting on an all black outfit takes time, guys. Just kidding. Jokes, bad jokes. Okay, so yeah, essentially, the pursuit of happiness. We've all heard that before, and where have we heard that before? It works better for me on a daily... Okay, sweet. Okay, we're gonna do 8 from now on. It's a nice even number. It's the number of infinity. You know, there's so many great things to that number. We're gonna do 8 from now on. Thank you for letting me know. So that way, too, some of our other peeps will probably be able to join at that time. Hopefully. Now, yeah, so the pursuit of happiness is part of living a good life. And we have our founding fathers who, on July 4th of 1776, who wrote that in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men should be created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Interesting. Interesting how it's connected to our boy Toddle. Aristotle. Essentially, our founding fathers knew that to have a happy, working, free society of full abundance, of full prosperity, that we needed to have morals ingrained as well. Okay? Now, it says the pursuit of happiness, that we have the right of the pursuit of happiness, that right of being a moral human being should not be taken away from us. It's a very, very big thing to put in the Declaration of Independence. Right? That, like our boy Toddle said, happiness is tied to morals and is an equation of equality towards morals. Another interesting thing I was reading on when it comes to our founding fathers, some of you guys might know, but just a reminder, Thomas Jefferson was the one who wrote the Declaration, and he was actually the youngest gentleman within the committee at that time. All the older men, the other 4 or whatever that were told to write this, there were like 4 or 5, okay, that were told to write the Declaration. Back, during that time, we were deciding where our loyalties lie as a country. Where did we decide our loyalties lie? With the Creator, not with Britain, not with the Crown, with the Creator, right? So, Thomas Jefferson was the youngest, and he was delegated with the task of putting this stuff together. It sounds like a normal day at work, right? Where you just pile all the stuff on the youngest, or like the newbie. Not that you should, but this is kind of what it's giving. Like, oh, let's give it to that young gun. He'll take care of it. He's gun-ho, right? So he was tasked with writing it because the document essentially, not the document, but Thomas Jefferson, he essentially was extremely knowledgeable with a wide variety of knowledge on all things politics. On all things politics and philosophy. So, he argued that the natural gifts and rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness came from the Creator and were sacred and were more broad than just rights of Englishmen. So it established what? It established freedom. It established freedom. So, you guys, it's quite interesting too how morals and ethics also are in alignment with freedom. To say no to things, to be firm in your morals, to be firm in your ethics, is not supposed to be a punishment of you can't enjoy this and you can't enjoy that. It's protection. Not just in this lifetime, but in the next too, because all of our decisions are putting deposits in our karma, good or bad, right? All of our decisions. Okay? So, that leads us in. Who do we got in the chat? My peoples. That leads us right into the second commandment, which is, you shall have no other gods before me. And I'm actually going to read that out of Deuteronomy. There's, again, 2 sections in the Bible where they have the 10 Commandments. One of them's in Exodus and the other's in Deuteronomy. Exodus is where Moses was given the commandments, and Deuteronomy is where he's reciting them again to the people. Okay? So, I'm going to read from Deuteronomy. Chapter 5 is where the 10 Commandments are restated. And then verse 8, okay, is where he discusses the second commandment. Hold the phone. Let me just double check something here. Well, there's, you should have no other God before me and not make yourself an idol. Right. Let's go ahead and read. I'm going to read both verses 7 and 8. 7 is, you shall have no other gods before me. 8 says, you shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above or on earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children. The children ain't safe. For the sin their fathers of the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations for those who love me and keep my commandments. The reason I wanted to read that out loud was that last part right there. I want you guys to pay attention to this. It states, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers and other generations of those who hate me, of those who are not in alignment with Source, essentially. And then it states, but showing love to 1,000 generations for those who keep my commandments. Why is that important? It kind of gives you a deeper understanding of the light and the dark. When you're in the light, it ripples for thousands of generations. Right? The goodness ripples much further than the darkness. But it still ripples. The darkness, you got at least 4 to 5 generations of darkness, compared to thousands of generations of light. Which I felt was quite interesting. How the greater rewards of goodness are compared to the rewards of darkness. And we all know what darkness looks and feels like because we've either seen it and experienced it ourselves, or we've seen it secondhand via the news, via the media outlets, via whatever else other people have experienced in our lives that we've learned about, via our history that we've seen some of the darkness, right? Now, Essentially, the second commandment prohibits giving any power to anything outside of source, and in turn, because you are a part of source, my favorite little phalange analogy, where there's source and then there's all of us, we're all connected. If you give your power away to anything except to source or yourself, that's essentially what the second commandment is all about. Not giving your power away. Because anytime you worship or utilize anything else as a vice, right, there's so many things that you can worship these days. Whether it's a statue, not you guys, I know you guys aren't worshiping statues necessarily, but just to give you a more wholesome picture, people worship statues, they worship money, they worship love, they worship power, they worship egos, having their ego more inflated instead of being in alignment with the truth. So you can worship things that are not even tangible, you can worship things that are energetic, right? So we got to be really intentional if we're getting off track with something and reel our energy back in. That's why one of my daily prayers, I have like a bunch of daily prayers. One of them is literally to cut off any of the darkness and to hone my own energy towards what Source is wanting me to do and create and focus on. So the other thing is too, not only can of course the bad things be worshipped, but the good things can be worshipped too. So when we're worshiping the good things, that's also giving our power away. It's giving our power away from source, our connection, and from ourselves, which we don't want to do either of those things. Because when we do one, we're doing the other as well. Right? They're interchangeable. You are not separate from God. You've never been and you never will be. Okay? Now, art can be worshipped, or even music can be worshipped. Love can be worshipped. We all know within history and within any other, even maybe our own country here, where love of country over love of source or love of God can be extremely detrimental. Right? Extremely detrimental. And heinous. People will commit heinous crimes when it's love of country over love of source or God or creator. There's also vanity and beauty. This is one that I could probably easily get caught up in when I need to put on my whole freaking face before getting on camera. Right? So vanity and beauty as well. Even if, I know Ethan's on here, I can't see who the other person is. But it's good for you guys to know both sides of the coin, because you've been females in previous lifetimes and you will be females in future lifetimes, or other sexes on other different planets, what have you. So in general, when it comes to beauty, is someone putting on their makeup to reveal their inner truth, or are they putting on their makeup because they don't feel whole in themselves? Okay? You always, in the good, bad, and the ugly, you want to come from a space of certainty of I am whole in myself. I don't need these exterior things. However, I like them, and I want to reveal the artistry within it, or whatever, right? All things in balance. So keep that in mind, gentlemen. Even education can also be something that's worshipped and used for heinous crimes. I mean, look at cults and stuff like that. Some of the big cults that have killed millions of people. Anytime that we are severing from source, God creator, Allah, our divine connection, we're actually leading to great evil. A great example of this would be Hitler. Hitler would be a fantastic example of this, so we'll talk about that a little bit right now. I do have a question for you, if you'd like to answer. Where are all our peeps? It's already 8:30. Where are my peeps at? I'm glad you guys are here, though. So, my question for you guys is, if you could go back in time and stop one historical figure, say Hitler, by killing them as a baby, would you do it even though baby Hitler had not done anything wrong yet? Would you kill baby Hitler? It's kind of a deep question to ask. And essentially, I think for a better answer on this question, one must understand the deeper truths within what happens on the other side. Yeah. So, essentially, all possibilities are always possible in any moment in time. So, essentially, and the thing, I don't want to necessarily answer this because I don't want to sound like crazy, but on the other side, I can't kill a baby. Yeah, facts. On the other side, we're not actually judged by anyone except ourselves. And I'm actually going to get into this anyways. I try to be more in depth with my notes so that way we can be like, I'm going to keep thorough. I already wrote this down in here. So maybe I should just keep going with where we're at. Basically, let's just consider it. And this is the kind of question that you guys will be able to answer with confidence as we develop and grow together on some of these concepts of the spiritual realm and what happens when you actually, like, with karma and stuff. Like, even a lot of that is, like, hard for us to digest because we don't have a lot of information on it, other than some of the metaphysical, spiritual, like, workers like Dolores Cannon. So it's really hard to answer some of these. Ideally, you don't want to get involved in creating more karma or trying to, like, you don't necessarily want to get involved with what's not yours to get involved with, essentially. Doesn't really matter what it's about. Because the whole, this is deeper actually in my class, so we'll get to it later. So essentially, let's just toy with thinking on this one. If you could go back in time and stop one historical figure by killing them as a baby, would you do it? Even though baby Hitler hadn't done anything wrong yet. Okay. So, this is more about ethics, right, and spirituality. So that's a really good question to kind of toy on, and we can go back and answer that at another time as we develop some more information on what that would actually mean. Appreciate all the hearts. Y'all are like getting, I don't want y'all to get carpal tunnel, but like, yo, thank you so much. So nice. So, yeah. Actually, this is the part where I was going to go into it more, which is funny. Wow. Look at that. What do we got on here? Some peeps? So, y'all, in Dolores Cannon's Between Death and Life, she talks about Hitler a little bit, and the framework in her past life regressions and research, which you guys have talked with me about. I've talked with you about. Essentially, she presents him as not simply a historical figure of evil, but as a complex soul. Okay. So, he has to repay his karma for what he's done, and that is probably spread out across many, many, many lifetimes of very disruptive and destructive. More than likely. I mean, we don't know for sure, but more than likely. Okay, karma has to rebalance. But the other thing to think about too is there's a couple players in the field, right? He didn't even kill anyone. he directed others to kill. He didn't put his hands on anyone, he directed others to kill. So I really want you guys to think of this from a neutrality place, because that's how people or the spirit realm thinks about things, from neutrality and balancing out the karma scales. It's not excusing any of the darkness that had been done, right? But it's looked at through neutrality, and it has to balance out. So from no judgment, it's looked at, which is hard for us to swallow because we are very judgmental. And as in general, we can be very judgmental, and especially for genocide. Like, of course. Especially when emotions are high, of course. But in the spirit realm, you don't have those same emotions that polarize you. You have only wholeness and love on the other side. You have completeness. Okay. Nicole, welcome. Thank you for being here. Yay, we got some of our peeps coming in. So right now we're kind of talking about a little bit of a heavy topic. We're talking about Hitler. Which is quite a heavy, more dense 3D energy topic, but essentially we're discussing how the no other gods before me, which is the second commandment, is not giving your power away. And that means to anything. That means tangible stuff, that in the 3D, that means energetically, that means anything that you are giving yourself away to or worshiping or using as a vice, like anything you're giving more energy to from a place of lack is inaccurate. We don't want to do that because it's giving our power away. And it's also giving the power of source away as well, because we are one, we're interchangeable. And how we got into Hitler is because even love of country over God, love of country over love of God, it's still love. It's still love. But people can create and commit very heinous crimes, right? So Hitler is a great example of this because for obvious reasons, we all know we don't need to go into that. What I'm trying to discuss here is what happened on the other side when he died and his soul's on the other side. Well, we do have a little bit of that information, and that's all found in the book of Between Death and Life by Dolores Cannon here. So, she's essentially stating, y'all, that he was a complex soul who played a larger role in spiritual drama and humanity's evolution. Through regressions with Cannon's subjects, they described Hitler as someone who became overtaken by darkness, okay, and destructive forces, losing connection to source, losing connection to higher guidance, choosing love of country, which is a beautiful thing to have, love of country, but he chose that over source. And this is why commandment number 2 is very important for us to live by. Doesn't matter if we're religious or not. Religion aside, these are spiritual truths that reside extremely well on the other side, just as well as they do here. Okay, so essentially she emphasizes that Hitler's actions, were not excused, right? The darkness is never excused. So when I speak of this stuff from a neutral place, it's because these things always balance out no matter what. You will be paying when the karma man comes, you are paying the karma man no matter what. And whoever else is involved, they're also paying the karma man too, okay? So it's good for us to understand energetically what happens to souls like this when they choose to go these routes, and how these things can be extremes, right? Extremely imbalanced, and how dangerous these things are. Now, Hitler's actions were not excused, but they were understood as part of a karmic lesson for humanity. The Kabbalists go into this a lot. Anytime you or me or anyone has a mean thought, a negative idea, anything to do with darkness, it creates and stores energetically on the other side, like, if you will, stick with me on this, a large, for example, negative rain cloud. Okay? So as a people, to include all of humanity on the full universe, when we are negative, when we are creating dark energies, it doesn't matter if it's from our thoughts, words, or actions, that stores somewhere, and collectively it has to balance back out. And a lot of times what'll happen is you'll have a big natural disaster. Look at LA and down in Cali areas when they have all these natural disasters. It's a clearing out of a lot of heavy darkness, even though there's great people in the area, and I don't wish any of this on anyone. A lot of times things are rebalanced. I'm not saying that it's good or bad or anything. I'm just talking from a space of, this is what it is, guys. This is the laws of the spiritual side, okay? Things are rebalanced. To include, when Hitler did the genocide, there is enough darkness that it had to manifest. There is enough darkness that it had to come into the world. And it will, and it does. And then because energetically things need to balance out. So this is why it's extremely important that when you think, oh, I'm just one human being, I can't do any, I'm just a ripple in the grand scheme. No, you're not. You are creating and destroying based off of how you are showing up every day. And just because you might not see it in this lifetime, maybe it'll be in a future lifetime, right? So keep that in mind, how important it is for us to be intentional. But yeah, so essentially with Hitler, it was a huge karmic lesson for humanity, demonstrating what happens when free will, power, and imbalance are misused on a massive scale. Massive, massive scale, right? Now, Hitler was serving as a catalyst of change. And it's pretty gruesome, it's pretty dark, but this is the truth. The atrocities forced collective awareness of cruelty, of prejudice, of dangers of blind obedience, pushing society towards growth, compassion, and a deeper recognition of spiritual truths. You hear me? So Dolores Cannon frames him as an example of how souls can deviate from their intended path, yet still contribute through contrast to the evolution of consciousness. Now, that's a pretty heavy, interesting thing to consider, that even the darkness is used for good, essentially. How is it used for good? Because things have to balance out. And so it will for sure be used for good. God makes sure, Source makes sure, the subconscious, superconscious makes sure. Okay? Which is pretty cool, because that also states that in your own lives, in our own daily lives, when the darkness is creeping in, trying to toy with us, trying to play us like a fiddle, guess what? The reason you can stand true and tall and rooted in your morals, rooted in your ethics, is because no matter what, the wrongs are going to be right. And you don't have to make the wrongs right. Source will make the wrongs right. And guess what? You'll be much happier when you give it up to Source to make the wrongs right. Because the divine be cooking. The divine be cooking delicious things. Michelin chef. Okay? You stay on the right path, connected to Source, and let the divine handle the darkness. So, what happened with Hitler is when he was a baby, he actually started out with great intentions. And the thing about Hitler was he was extremely creative. He had a lot of life force. And he should have been an artist or an architect because he had so much creativity that he was able to harness. He had no outlet for that creativity because of his father. His father holds a lot of the karma for what happened with the genocide because his father is part of the reason why, instead of utilizing, Hitler's creative outlet and love for his country towards architecture, and he could have been building up beautiful things in Germany, it twisted to the darkness because that energy had to go somewhere. And he grew up in very, very harsh means with his father. So his father is also, at that time, and, they're reincarnating. They do reincarnate, and they reincarnate into probably extremely shitty lifetimes. Extremely shitty. Multiple lifetimes. Because you can't just get rid of that type of karma in one lifetime. It's going to be spread out into multiple lifetimes. So, he wasn't allowed to, his father constricted him, not allowing Hitler to go on his creative pursuits, onto his creative endeavors with architecture. So he went down the destructive route because his father was a heinous human being. And so Hitler had to utilize that energy towards something. He had to channel it somewhere. So he's like, okay, let me just channel it towards the darkness. Essentially, gamer, we are talking about a lot of things. One of them is Hitler. Not because it's a fun topic, but because it's an essential topic to kind of understand the things that were not talked about. Yeah, tune in, facts. The things that we know are, of course, all of the darkness, right? Oh, I appreciate that. That's very kind. But what happens to someone like Hitler on the other side? Right? So I'm kind of discussing a little bit of his childhood, how he went from the path of what he should have been doing, which is going down the path of his love for country, channeling it into that. He had a lot of energy, a lot of extremely creative energy. He should have channeled that energy into building an architecture within his own love for his country. However, his father was so heinous, wouldn't let him do the creativity stuff, and so over time, he basically flipped the switch and became extremely heinous and destructive with all of his creative force and energy. Now, there's much more to this, and if you were tuned in a few minutes earlier, I was kind of talking about many different aspects and angles of this. It's not a fun, easy, light topic to talk about, but we need to look at things in this classroom here from a space of neutrality, because guess what? Karma always handles. We never are dismissing anyone's actions, and neither does karma, neither does the subconscious, who notates everything. To all the little atoms and molecules and biocells, every little strand of hair on you, nothing goes unwitnessed or unwatched. Okay? We're never alone. Anyways, I digress. All I'm trying to say is, so essentially Hitler didn't have the right outlets for all this creative energy, and it flipped to darkness, which is tying into the second commandment, guys, of you shall not love anything above me, which is not me, but which is source, anything above God, Allah, whatever you call it, divine intelligence. Okay? Why is that? Because you're giving your power away, like Hitler did with, he did love for God over love for country. Oh, but it's love. Well, we all know what happened. oh, it's love for country. And people can commit very heinous crimes when they give their power away to anything above source. Love of country over love of God, or love of source, love of divine, is why he did what he did. Heinous, heinous, heinous crimes, okay? So that's why it's very important that we never, ever, ever give our power away to any person, place, or thing, to any type of energy above source, above our connection to the divinity, above the divinity within ourselves. Okay? So, back to Hitler. I know it's like Bible and Hitler in one class. What is good? I am a person of extremes. But there's a way to... I feel like it's really important for us to talk about this, because this is not talked about in school. Who learned about the spiritual side of Hitler in school? No one. Right? So... let's get back into some of my classwork here. Essentially, since he wasn't allowed to develop in the direction that he was supposed to do, which was architecture, the energy started to warp. Okay? He turned to destructiveness. He had no outlet. The energy had to have an outlet. Okay? And he was twisted and damaged. To give an example of how damaged these souls are, what happens when he died, and if anyone else that dies, if you're that damaged, he was a damaged soul after that. Like, he went down the deep, deep end, right? So you go into when he passed, essentially, and anyone that's very deranged, damaged like that is going to, when they pass, they go to kind of like what would be considered a hospital here, where they go to, like, essentially learn and rest and kind of are set apart before they can even think about how they're going to start to undo their karma with their next assignments. Because it's quite a large negative karma deposit that he made, and his father also made, because his father is the one who led him into the warped destruction with his energy, instead of giving him and saying, yeah, let's go down that route of the architecture and creativity and love for country that way. Okay? So in the spirit world, it's kind of like a hospital where a soul will actually go and rest for whatever length of time. There's no such thing as time. We already know that. So it's essentially kind of a place where your soul learns and reflects, because the only person that actually judges you on the other side right away, you sit back and you look at your life, the flashing cards of, like, you know, the reel of your life, the highlight reel. So when we die, guys, we actually watch that reel of our life, and what happens is we judge ourselves. And we judge ourselves because we're also on the spirit realm, so we're not connected to the lower dimensions like we are here. So we judge ourselves from a place of neutrality, and we're very honest with what we have done or haven't done or did, you know, whatever, right? So, and we feel if we've ever made someone feel sad or did something to hurt someone else, we actually feel their pain as well. And then we also look at our soul corrections too, and we decide, okay, like, you know, did I learn and integrate these corrections, or do I need to redo some of these things? So it's funny, because who's the highest critic of yourself in right now in your life? Probably yourself. So I'm actually going to go back into that again later in the class here, but essentially it's really quite interesting that we always say God judges us. Well, there's no judge other than ourselves, but the source takes notes and has everything in the ripple, or people call it the Akashic records. It doesn't really matter what you call it. The subconscious, which is like a superhuman computer brain, right? of the entire cosmos is taking notes. It has everything noted. Everything. Every single thing. Okay? So we don't even have to explain ourselves or, everything's recorded. Everything. Okay? So just like us humans do, and we record history, we are very similar to Source. A lot of the things that we do is what Source does or has the ability to do, which is quite interesting. That's probably for another class. But you see here how I'm saying we document everything too from the 3D. But anyways, I digress. So essentially, when Hitler died, he was sent to a place to learn. So you don't get reincarnated right away after you do something like that, guys. You first have to learn what happened. So he's reviewing his time with his dad, where things turned, where things grew to a big, sour, warped, destructive. So he was revisiting all of that. And essentially, it's a time for reflection. And then after that is when you would actually meet up with other higher dimension souls to discuss with them how to rework out your karma and your soul corrections. So, yeah. For the second commandment is to have no other gods above God. Essentially, don't give your power away to anything or anyone else. Your power is in Source. Your power is in divinity. Your power is in self, because you are part of Source. You are part of divinity. Do not ever give your power away to vices, to anything outside of you. You are whole in yourself. You are whole in yourself because you are part of Source, and Source is whole in itself. Okay? So the chakra, as I was stating yesterday, the chakras, the upper chakras are actually tied to the very first 5 commandments, which is quite interesting because the first tablet is all about the relationship with the divine. And as we already knew and learned within our chakra system, the higher up you go in your chakra system, the more you're connected to the divine. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, the chakra that corresponds quite well to the second commandment. My document is so large, sometimes sorry guys, I gotta scroll, I'm scrolling down. Okay, is the third eye chakra. Okay. As we have already discovered and covered, the third eye chakra is the mind's eye. Okay. So, it's your seat of inner vision and discernment. We all know how important discernment is, because when you don't have discernment, you are vulnerable. Yeah, I am. I'm the CIA for Source, for God. They got me on a secret mission, y'all. I'm out here preaching and teaching. Facts. You're gonna lose people you thought you loved. You're gonna be like, no, I actually need to. Yeah, facts. Okay. Well, technically, we gotta love everyone, but you're gonna recreate your entire world when your third eye is open, for sure. Facts on that. As you should, right? That's part of this beautiful journey that we're on. It's much easier to be stuck in the lower dimensions and in the darkness. That's a very easy route. It takes intention every single day to live from a place of divinity, to live from a place of truth. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, eagles represent freedom. Eagles are a symbol of freedom, right? They're a symbol of truth, which is quite interesting that that's exactly what we're talking about here. So that's pretty cool. You feel like you're being watched. You technically are at all times, but not from a heinous place. I mean, there might be some dark energies watching you here and there, which they're probably taking notes on how to be lighter and cooler, but Yeah, no, we're never alone. We have spirit guides too. They're never going to intervene unless you call upon them for things. You have to call upon them. It says all over the Bible as well, ask and you will receive. Right? Ask and you will receive. You can ask for specific signs as well. Anyways, let me go back into some of this stuff because I do have a lot to cover. Thank you guys for putting in some insight, and feel free to, say whatever you'd like. Right, you can, and watch when you're in alignment, when you're actually in alignment, no fluff, right? When you're actually in alignment, things will start to trickle in, okay? When you're coming from a place of wholeness, when you're not coming from a place of lack. Yeah, so essentially, as we all know, our third eye chakra is when it's clear, one sees the truth. When it's clouded, one sees illusions. Now, when we have one God, this is another huge key within the second commandment, guys, okay? Is when we have one God, one creator, one source, we also have one common race. What does that make? Equality. Right? It also creates one moral system as well. So we can stand in unity together as well for all people, which is essentially monotheism ethics. But this creates a sense of accountability, which is important. How many people you know in your life, or within government, or within this or that, any sector, that are not taking accountability? I mean, it's any walk of life. It can be in the medical field, people not taking accountability, right? Now, I do want to emphasize as well that there is no heaven or hell. That is control. When religions try to say that, hey, there's heaven and hell, no, that is control. That's amazing. And those are synchronicities that you're right on track. So heaven and hell is something that we have essentially created for control. And a lot of times when people have near-death experiences, they confirm heaven and hell. Why do they do this? Because our subconscious will create on the other side whatever we believe we should see. That's why people have experiences of seeing Jesus on the other side if they have a near-death experience, because that's what they believe they should see. Now, the thing is, when you actually die, the reason we know about what happens when we actually die, exactly. The reason we know about what happens when we die is because we have this beautiful thing called the subconscious. And the subconscious is where we are able to have professionals. Dolores Cannon is one of them. She's since passed, but who can do hypnotherapy. And they do regressions. They're like quantum hypnotherapy regressions to the subconscious, where they can actually bring clients, their subjects, back to the death experience, and also through the death experience to the other side. So we have countless information about what's on the other side, guys, which is pretty cool. Apparently I'm yapping so much that I'm gonna need to get my water. But what I wanted to say is, if there were heaven and hell, right? I really want you to stay with me on this. It's just basic. BBLs. Oh my gosh, BBLs crack me up. I just think it's so funny. Like, it's just so funny. BBLs crack me up. Have you guys ever seen the memes where they have like it's like a human being, right? And they're a bag of bones, or like it's their skeleton in the grave, but they also have the fake implant boobs and the BBL. I think that's so funny. Like archaeologists in the future, they're gonna be like, what the front door? What the front door is this? I just think that's so funny, because like some of those materials will probably outlast your own, other decomposing materials, right? It's just so funny to me. B-mails. grab a refreshment. Okay, but this class ain't about BBLs, but it's an interesting topic. It's interesting. But let's get back to some of this. So, my bangs are annoying me, but whatever. Sometimes you just gotta go with the flow. With the divine flow. Now, yeah, what I really wanted to emphasize here, guys, this is very, very important. And this is something that you can have conversations with your people, your souls that you're connected to about. Why would anyone in their right mind want to believe in a God where the afterlife is, they don't know, they might go to heaven or hell, and it's the best thing is you can hope. The best thing is you can hope that you did the right things and you confessed. Mr. Mrs. Limited, you're about to be limited off this class if you don't reel it in. But you should probably stay and listen to the class because you need to grow on a conscious level, okay? Okay. Sorry about that. So, essentially, y'all, the question is, why would anyone in their right mind want to believe in a God who they don't know, maybe after they know for sure they're going to heaven or hell, but they don't know which one? Does that make any right mind sense? I'm going to commit my life to this religion and hopefully I get a ticket to heaven. Hopefully I've done it all the right way. It's a guess. It's a flip of a coin if I'm going to heaven or hell, but hopefully it's heaven. Guys, that makes no absolute sense. I'm sorry. That makes no sense at all. To think that we would be loved by a God that would say, good luck, figure it out. You might go to hell though, just saying. You might. Guys, that's not how it works, okay? I'm telling you right now, that's not how it works. And it's a dang lie. And it's a lie because of what? Control. And why do people believe that? When you sit and really think about that, why do people believe that? To include, at one time, myself. At one time, myself had believed that as absolute truth, because that is what I was indoctrinated to believe. But the thing about me, guys, which you've probably noticed, is I question everything. As you should too. We should always question everything. We should always explore. We should always ask, my favorite question to ask is the opposite true? Is the opposite true? This is how you actually find the truth, by questioning everything, to include the truth. The best way to figure out if something is true is to question it. Specifically, even a truth. You want to double confirm that it's true? Question the truth. And you will find your answers. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Kaden, you're out here trying to get freaking class, what is it called? Sure, you can ask a question. Can I question a question? Yes, you can question a question. Absolutely. That's actually one of the best responses to a question is a question. You know why? The person who's asking the questions is the person who's in control. And what does the second commandment say? Do not give your control away outside of your divinity with source. You can absolutely question with a question, and that's a beautiful thing to do. And I highly recommend that you do that. Highly recommend. Thank you for the question, Matt. So, when it comes to the Bible, I read my Bible every day. just to get everything clear. I read my Bible daily. This is a class on the 10 Commandments. Okay? I'm not saying that this book, which I have multiple copies, I got many copies. Okay? This is my favorite book. Why? Because of wisdom. The thing about a lot of the stuff in here is amazing. Some of the stuff is to control. Why do we know that? Because we know human tendencies, human nature. Human nature, if we put fear and instill fear in people, in the Bible they used to put the reincarnation, they took that out. The Bible has actually been changed so many times, and they don't even put, like, for example, the Apocrypha books. Thank you so much for the mouse or whatever those are. I appreciate that. The kitten. Okay. Thank you so much. So the thing is, guys, I highly recommend you actually read this every day. And I want you to read it from a place of reading between the lines. When it comes to the Bible and any other spiritual texts, what you want to do is you want to read from a place of objectivity, but also you want to read between the lines. The wisdom is in between the lines. The wisdom is usually more symbolic than literal. Okay? And you need to have discernment through your connection with Source to know what is right, what is wrong, what is not true, all of that good stuff. Okay? So, what this is, this book right here, the Bible, essentially, there's a lot of inaccuracies, but there's a lot of truth, a lot of wisdom, and that is why I read the Bible every single day. Because I want to stay in my divinity with God, in my divinity with Source. Now, what was I trying to say? One thing about, so this was written a long time ago, guys, okay? And the thing is, when it comes to information, and it comes to getting information, from Source, for humans, we cannot have things change so quickly, immediately. We do not like change that quickly. People complain all the time, oh, what's new about this Apple X or Apple 0.015 or whatever, Apple 17, Apple 18. Nothing's really new. It's only like 2 things. Because guess what? Apple knows this, as soon as you give humans too many changes, you'll have uproar. So they slip in small changes and upgrades that you guys can easily incorporate and feel really good and confident about, where you're picking up right where you left off. You're able to make your calls to your family or grandmas or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying. I don't need to dumb things down. What I'm saying is, these truths, there's a lot of truths in the Bible that hold extreme eternal wisdom. But then too, there's a lot of things in here that when you read it too literally, or you give your control away to external sources, whether they be tangible or intangible, whether they be energetic or whether they be something you can hold in the 3D, okay? That is when you're stepping even outside of the 10th commandment right here. Excuse me. When you're stepping outside of the 2nd commandment, giving your power away. If the law, God's law, is these 10 commandments, giving your power away to any external forces is a sin. Sin isn't really even a thing on the other side, on the spiritual realm. Karma, balancing of scales, is. You are not judged by God, you judge yourself, and the blanket of karma that you have woven, whether it be good or bad, you be guaranteed it's going to balance itself out. And you will pay where you need to pay, and you'll play where you need to play. Okay? So, heaven and hell is a construct that was made up by well, technically, we can still, to this day, heaven and hell, if you want to call it those things, is a real thing. So what is heaven? Well, in the spiritual realm, we do have like beautiful areas where we can learn. There's so many things on the other side in the spiritual realm. Okay? Again, guys, we only can actually perceive with our own sight here on the 3D dimensional 0.003 to 0.005. So there's 99% that we can't perceive with our own eyes. It's the spiritual realm, y'all. Now, these are different vibrational frequencies. So that's why when I move my hand right here, I'm not feeling anything, because we're different vibrational frequencies if there were, spiritual whatever right here. Okay, that's probably for another day. Essentially what I'm trying to say is, back to heaven and hell. The constructs of heaven and hell that we're going to burn in Hades, which I love the word Hades. It's just such a good word. Or we're going to go to heaven. Technically, how the Bible portrays that is not true. What's actually true is hell would be repeating the same cycles over and over again. Your soul tikkun corrections, like the Kabbalists say, within Jewish mysticism. That would be hell. Imagine some of the worst times in your lifetime, in this lifetime. Imagine having to repeat those times again and again. Technically, hell is living out your soul corrections and not learning. Hell is staying in lower vibrational frequencies for long periods of time. Hell is not growing consciously. That is what hell really is. It's not burning in Hades. There's no such thing, guys. There's no burning. Hitler didn't burn. There's a lot of people that might have liked to burn Hitler, but he didn't burn when he went to the other side. Okay? I mean, like what hell is living out karma and living out some soul corrections. If you have to keep repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. That's why you learn you now, you learn you today. So you don't have to repeat. Okay? And heaven, if you're to call it that, is just the spiritual realm. And I'll actually do another class because I really want to get further into the commandments, but I'll do a class based on, what happens on the other side when we pass. Death, too, you guys, is never anything to be afraid of. That doesn't mean to go kill anyone or to kill yourself. It's just a blink of an eye. Like, we have the power and control to not feel pain through our subconscious. We can eject, and we all have actually picked out specific times in our lives where if we wanted to leave, we can. We already agree to all these things on the other side. These things are already agreed to. That's again why they say, and why time is irrelevant. It's not even a thing. Time is just a construct we humans have, made up to try to understand and live constructively, maybe, whatever. But essentially, all things in a simultaneous reality, or what they call in the scientific realm is like the block universe. Time is folding into itself, or whatever. It's like past, present, and future is all happening at once. That's why it's the present moment. So we can get more into that as well. But essentially, you guys, the second, there's so many directions we can take. All these directions. So essentially, creating morality creates a sense of accountability collectively, and what you need to think of ethics and moral as is karma balancing. Okay? In the Kabbalah, it's the wisdom sector, which is the kokma, the flash of divine insight. Anytime that we are giving our energy and our divinity away to external things, people, places, and things, we're creating false dependencies on anything outside of ourselves, and it creates cracks in our own vessel. And as you and I have discussed, when we have cracks in our own vessel, we are unable to hold more divine light and to hold more ability for miracles in our lives. So, giving your power away from anything outside of yourself and source is siphoning your own energy. Now, idols, the Bible calls them idols, but essentially an idol can be anything. It doesn't have to just be a statue. An idol can be anything that is siphoning your energy away, saying that you're not whole in yourself with your divinity through source. Okay? These things, doesn't matter again if it's tangible or intangible, something you can hold or something that's energetic, like love, right? How Hitler loved country over God. They create cracks in your vessel, and it makes you incomplete from a place of lack, which you don't want that. You right now, no matter how you feel, you need to understand on an energetic level, you are whole in yourself. You do not need anything outside of your connection to source. If you're living from a place of lack, it's essentially like building a house of straw. It's not going to work very well. A little tiny gust of wind comes up and it's like, boom, no house. Right? You want strong, deep, deep foundations to be able to grow very high spiritually. Temporary satisfactions of the 3D, our goal is to always rise above 3D. That's a great thing to write it down somewhere energetically, right, or tangibly in your house. I like to write it on my mirror. I rise above 3D because that is what we are to do. We're not to be subject to the 3D. We're to rise above. These temporary fleeting satisfactions crumble, guys. They're temporary and they're fleeting. They're tempting, but temptations are the short game. People are like, oh, what's your 1-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Y'all, we are on an eternity plan with our decision-making process. We are on an eternity plan. How different would things have been if Hitler had known that he was on a plan for eternity and not just for that lifetime? So integrate this wisdom now into your soul. Imprint it into your soul. Sit with it energetically with source. So that way you can carry this throughout all your lifetimes. And what I'm saying here is going to resonate with you whether you have heard this before or not. Why will it resonate with you? Because it's true. It's going to resonate when it's true. We are mortal men with immortal souls. So we are technically dualistic in nature. That's why we have to be very intentional every single day with being in alignment with our immortal soul over our mortal man nature. Okay? In the Hermetica, which is some of the ancient wisdom from the Egyptians, which I love. What a great book. Fantastic. It's basically stating that, which I love this phrase. I'm going to quote this right here. It's gods are immortal men and men are mortal gods, which ties in perfectly to our second commandment here, of not idolizing anything outside of our connection to source and our divinity within source, because we do not give our power away. We are part of source. We are divine. We are fragments of God. And that's why the Hermetica says gods are immortal men and men are mortal gods. Okay? When we make decisions based off of being a whole, immortal soul over being a mortal man, this is when more of the divine light can transform our lives, and miracles can also enter our lives, transforming ourselves and the people around us. Okay? From wholeness, you recognize that everything flows from one source. from your divinity within. There's no need to do any comparing or grasping for fleeting 3D false energies, counterfeits. Okay? Your vessel will expand towards infinite light. We are bodies of light, y'all. Not finite substitutes. Essentially, the second commandment is guarding against evil eye, envy of wanting what others don't have, an evil mind, which is projecting power onto external things. We don't do that. It's giving Hitler. Okay? We don't do that. We don't do that. It's giving Hitler. We don't project power onto external things. We hold our divinity within with source. Okay? Now, anytime, practically within our own lives, anytime that we might run into these lower vibrational energies, when we might be in a comparison, cross-analysis, or perhaps we're envious or jealous or this or that, immediately catch yourself in that space and bless that person. The more that you can actually bless the people that you dislike, the more you can release and forgive the darkness, the better your eternity will be. Because again, we don't work from a place of the 3D. The 3D says they messed with you, you should mess with them. The 3D says revenge. Eternity says you're whole within, and you don't need. Eternity says you don't need to bat an eye to do anything. Revenge will happen through the karmic wave of reality. Believe me, everything that is done, whether good, bad, or evil, doesn't matter. Everything that is done within this realm and every realm is documented and stored. You never have to bat an eye. You never have to raise your voice. You never have to raise your voice, even. Which, if you guys haven't seen my vessels video from my YouTube, you'd love that. I kind of go over why it's important not to raise your voice. We've all had times and experiences where someone might have yelled at us or we've yelled at someone else. We actually don't need to do that. Why? Because we're coming from an eternal place, and in the eternal, it doesn't excuse anyone's actions that are mean, or, no one's actions are ever excused, guys. It always pans out in the grand scheme of eternity. Maybe you won't see it in this lifetime where someone gets, where the divine distributes the karma based off of how someone treated you, but you better believe in the future lifetime they're about to get their butt whooped, okay? They were controlling you, they're about to be controlled. And you never have to bat an eye or revenge on anyone because of eternity and divinity and the truth of the balancing of the scales. It will always happen no matter what, and you can have faith and trust in that because you've also experienced it in your own life. So, you should always bless others and have their light shine too. A good meditation for this, which I like to switch up my meditations. I do have a meditation playlist on my YouTube as well that I have opened up to the public, just my personal playlist. I like to rotate through some of those. Sometimes I'll search for a new one, but this meditation you guys might have already done before. It's called a loving kindness meditation. This is a beautiful thing to help you on the game of eternity, which is the game we're all on. No matter if people want to accept it right now or they want to accept it later, they're going to accept it eventually because they're going to figure it out. We're all on the game of eternity here. So, loving kindness meditation is essentially giving loving kindness to yourself, and then you see in your mind's eye whoever else you want to envision, and you give loving kindness to them. The best thing you can do for yourself, guys, is to give loving kindness to the people who have done you dirty. Why? Because we already know it's the eternity game. And when you do that, it helps you with forgiving that person too. And when you do that, you're actually when you're really internalizing it, not just doing it to do it, but really internalizing, sending loving kindness to others. And to your animals too, to your pets. It can be any walk of life, okay? What happens when you do that and you really truly forgive is, again, you're creating an opportunity to not repeat these cycles with the same souls on another lifetime. That is the definition of hell. No thank you. So how do you learn and how do you rise above? Well, guys, on the other side, not in the 3D, but on the other side in the spiritual realms, everything is love and wholeness and unity and completion. And the crazy thing is, the people that have done you wrong and dirty in this lifetime, on the other side, y'all are playing patty cake together and friends, because these lower dimensional dark vibrations, they dissipate. We're all essentially here to learn and to grow on a soul level, and this is a very hard school, if you will, to learn and grow on, because of how dense the energies are in the lower dimensions. But nonetheless, so with this second commandment here, from Aristotle's lens, the second commandment reflects temperance and patience, avoiding the excess of greed, deficiency, self-doubt, and finding the mean in contentment. So finding the balance in all things, not giving your power away, finding the balance of wholeness in self and your divinity with source. Okay? Now, that concludes the second commandment of 10. Y'all, we out here diving deep. We swan diving. Any questions in the chat or anything? Karmic retribution, yep. We never have to bat an eye. Everything is calculated and worked out to include our own karma, because none of us are perfect. Okay. Can we talk about why he is a bad guy? Why who's a bad guy? Thank you, I appreciate that. Why who's a bad guy? Hitler or what? Well, we all know why Hitler did wrong things. H-man? What's H-man? You guys have any comments about what we just discussed? Yeah. That's actually going to go into another, thank you for that, speaking things into existence. I don't know what you're talking about. I really want to call you obesity. Just because, but it's like Obi-Tony or Obi, I digress. So thank you for speaking things into existence. Actually, we can just kind of start going into the third, that ties exactly into the third commandment, speaking things into existence, how important word is. Oh, Aristotle. Okay, well, nonetheless, guys, so let's actually just dive straight into the third commandment, which is not taking the Lord's name in vain. So it's heavily speaking things into existence, whether that be the good, the bad, or the ugly, right? So in Hebrew, because the Bible was written in Hebrew first, that actually translates, the original translation was, do not carry the name thy Lord God in vain. Do not carry. Versus what we currently have in our Bibles, which usually states, do not misuse or do not take. So the worst sin, this is probably technically considered the worst sin if you're to try to, sin isn't really a thing, but if you were to try to say, okay, what's really frowned upon is committing a double sin, if you will, or double evil, which essentially is religious evil. Religious evil is the worst evil there is. Why is this? Killing in God's name, stuff like that, right? We all know about times right now and times in history doing things in the Lord's name. That's one of the worst evils and the darkest things that one can do. You're not just doing the evil act or the bad act. It's a double sin because you're putting it in God's name and doing terrible damage to the name of God. Now, the frequent argument against God is evil committed in God's name, which it is hard to digest. I mean, I grew up in the church, and no matter what, no matter what religion it is, I mean, they usually believe in a God, right? And so when you know that your own religion has done things that are quite heinous in the name of God, it is hard to digest that. You're like, whoa. It is hard to digest that. Because the thing is, words are sacred. Exactly. Which is straight evil. Straight evil. And that's a double evil, and they will be reprimanded by the good old superconscious who takes detailed notes, knows everything. Okay? So, words are sacred and they shape our reality, which is going back into directly what you were saying, no lead, which is, essentially that words do create reality. Words are vibration. Yeah, Enoch, I actually need to read into that more. I have that book already. I need to, it's on my list. Now, this commandment calls for reverent speech aligning with our throat chakra, right? So you see how the first commandment aligns with our crown chakra, which the first commandment is that there is source, there is God, there is creator. Second was the no idols, no illusions, which is our third eye, mind's eye chakra. The third commandment in the Bible is essentially not carrying the Lord's name in vain, which is tied deeply to our throat chakra. Now, this is our center for truth of our expression, right? So when it's balanced, your words are going to uplift and create, because we are creators, made from creator. They're also going to they can be misaligned, your words can be misaligned and harm and create destruction. Our good old pal Hitler, great example of that. How words can create absolute obliteration and destruction. Okay? Now, Aristotle's virtue of honesty fits here with speaking the truth with integrity and avoiding lies and flattery. With the Kabbalah, the Binah is where the speech channels divine light, or it can also distort through ego. Now, misusing God's name or any words creates spiritual short circuits, leaking your energy. So, this essentially creates the evil tongue, gossip, lies, careless speech, fractured connections, where the Kabbalist within Jewish mysticism emphasized that the tongue builds or destroys worlds. So you can speak things into existence, and that's why it's very important to make sure you're utilizing the right words and have the right intentions and the right actions, all things connected in your divinity through source. And having integrity. So speaking with awe and love preserves your vessel's integrity. That's again why we should never speak heinous words to even people we don't like, and that's why we should bless them. Not dismissing their actions, because guess what? Their actions will never be dismissed energetically. Every action is recorded. Every detail. Okay? Every detail. Words, thoughts, actions, every single detail. Every micro detail. To include the atoms that can't talk are recorded. Like the air is recorded. Like the things that everything is recorded. Now, I want to take a quick look into some of the deeper Hermetic truths on word and using our words to create, speaking things into existence, and then we'll look at Genesis in the beginning. So, with Hermetica, it talks a lot about speaking things into existence, and there's a lot of deeper truths. The word, which in Greek is translated as logos, describes divine creative principle, living expression of God's mind. Words are living expression of God's mind. Okay? Through word, the cosmos comes into being, and order is imposed on chaos. Into the void. From the void, order is imposed from chaos. On chaos, excuse me. The Hermetica basically presents words as not just speech or language, okay, but as a generative force that carries the thoughts of the divine into manifestation, okay? Now, in this sense, the word is both the pattern and the power by which life can emerge, linking to light and reason. We are bodies of light. Now, it suggests that when humans align themselves with divinity in word, not evil tongue, right? We awaken higher knowledge and participate in creation consciously. What a beautiful thing. We are creators ourselves as we have been created. Thus, the word is a central bridge between God and the cosmos, spirit and matter, revelation and understanding with what we can create and or dissipate, right? Words create and words can dissipate or destruct. Now, the Bible here, Genesis in the beginning, what I thought was quite interesting, we've all heard, or read Genesis, the creation. Essentially, guys, these things are not to be as literal. They're to be read in a symbolic form of spiritual truth. But what I thought was interesting is, so you go to Genesis, you go to, of course, obviously chapter 1. So I'm going to start at verse 1, and I'm going to read quickly to just through verse 5. Okay? I think this is really cool, a really key element, very important for us. Now, it says, in the beginning, y'all, I can't be stopped. In the beginning, sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty, darkness over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters, hovering over the void. And then God said, so why are words important? Symbolically, we can see right here, words are extremely important. Then God said, let there be light. Interesting, guys. What have we learned through the chakra system? The chakras are every single color of the Roy G. Biv rainbow, which is a prism of light, just separated. We're bodies of light. It states, verse 3, in Genesis, in the beginning, okay? God said, let there be light. To me, that's giving consciousness. Bodies of light. We are bodies of light. And then there was light. Now God saw that the light was good. So if anyone has existential, like what is the nature of man? The nature of man is darkness or good. Well, it states right here that our nature is good. Our nature is light. Okay? He separated the light from the darkness. Now stay with me here. I know this isn't the Adam and Eve, but this is stating, since we know we are bodies of light that can carry divine light, we are vessels of divine source. You feel me? So it states we were separated from darkness. Now God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning, and there was the first day. Okay? So most people take that super literal, which is not accurate. There's a lot of spiritual meaning behind that. He took the light and well, first it was spoken into existence. God said, let there be light. Okay? That's how powerful words are. The question, can you speak things into existence? The third verse in the Bible says yes. Now, you might be like, oh, well, why is it written that way? Well, back when this was written, guys, was a long time ago. You cannot give all the information. What we need to utilize the Bible as is a foundation to grow upon. This is not the end-all be-all definite. This is the foundation to grow upon. And that's what we're doing in this class, is we are growing upon this foundation. We are not limited beings. We are not controlled by anything outside of our divinity within self and source. Right? This is a foundation that we can expand on. Because that is what we're meant to do. We are not meant to be living in the Stone Age where they didn't have electricity and saying that this is how we should live and take everything literal. That is not what this was for. This is for foundations of wisdom and truth to be built upon and to grow spiritually and consciously, collectively together. Okay? So, anyways, I just thought that was really amazing. God says, let there be light. We are bodies of light. And we have learned the Word of God is presented in a very powerful way of creation itself. So, Word, too, if you're to look at it from a scientific standpoint, because I do think it's really important to study all sides of the coin. God is not just spirituality. Superconscious is not just spirituality. It's also scientific. It's also reason and logic. It's not just art. Okay? Now, so when we look into the side of words from a scientific perspective, it's the natural laws of the universe that we have and that we're building upon. And they're getting more and more quantum every single day. Quantum computing, quantum AI, quantum this, quantum that. You hear me? So, essentially, guys, the opening chapter repeatedly declares that, and God said. Everything that God created was, and God said. So can words manifest reality? I would argue they can, because of what we have right here in the Bible. Very first opening of the Bible, too. Which is pretty powerful. We can take a lot of wisdom all throughout, but back to the manifesting, essentially, and God said, after each phrase of that, the and God said, let there be light, and God said, let there be night, follows the manifestation of whatever he said. So he said blank, and then there was blank. He said blank, and then there was blank, right? So it's revealing that, creation is not crafted just by physical means. It's also brought into existence through divine speech. And that's bringing us back to our third commandment here, which is, thou shalt not say the Lord's, or take the Lord's name in vain. So, divine speech, the spoken word, is a vehicle of God's will, and that's why we should utilize this ability, this magical ability, to the best of our ability, in alignment with Source on what we're supposed to be creating. So, within the Bible, it should not be taken so literal. Again, the Bible is something that we can utilize as a foundation to be able to grow our spiritual roots into Source, or branches, if you will. Now, and I already have covered, if you were here earlier in the class, I have covered why, for example, the second commandment, we should not have any idols outside of Source, to include giving our power away. Well, what does that include? That also includes religious dogma. That also includes government. That also includes communities that try to force us to give our power away. Anything outside of ourselves and our connection with God or divinity or source or whatever you want to call it. So if you were here earlier in the class, you would have heard some of these things. Thank you for adding your input. Now, and a lot of times I do repeat stuff too over time, so you guys will hear. It's almost, I guess, like preaching, right? You hear, or someone in a doing a speech, they're going to repeat some of the key concepts over time, multiple times. So you'll probably hear me say a lot of the stuff that are like spiritual truths that are really resounding, that I want you guys to understand and really integrate. And you can also go challenge, right? Challenge anything I say, of course. But when you start to integrate these things, your life will start to change. And at that point, I would expect you to actually grab my email and let me know how your life has changed, because I would love to know. And I think that would be good for me to hear. Because I'm living from a place of having integrated some of these spiritual truths and still trying to show up every day to integrate some of these spiritual truths to bring in miracles. Now, yeah, so guys, essentially what we speak, the act of speaking, bridges the unseen with the seen, from the void into the 3D, okay? Turning your pure intentions into tangible realities. I think maybe it was Bob Proctor, one of the cool like self-help gurus, said that if you can hold it in your mind, you could hold it in your hand. I love that. If you can hold it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. That is why we have desires as well. That is why we have certain, like, yeah, essentially desires. Go for it. What would you like to ask? Hope and faith, it gives you something to keep them in peace and love. Again, if you're here earlier in the class, I went over a huge part on my feelings behind the Bible and my knowledge behind the Bible, what it should be used for and what it shouldn't be used for. The commandments. So basically, I feel like I'm a constant loop of mistakes. Yeah, you can enjoy and come into this class every single day until these things are ingrained, which I'm doing evening classes on weekdays every day. So that's a great place to start, so you're in the right place, okay? Why? Because, guys, I'm not God or this or that. I just know some of these spiritual truths that can help you out when you start to apply them. If you're in a constant karma loop, which, believe me, we've all been there, whether it be in this lifetime or the previous or the next even, right? We've all been there. And it can be HE double hockey sticks. That is literally a definition of hell. It's not in my dictionaries here, which I got 2 fatties, by the way. They're like my prized possessions. Fatty dictionaries. I love them. I digress. What I'm trying to say is, if you're in a karmic loop, right, the best thing to do, this isn't going to be something you want to hear, but is to do the best you can under your circumstances. The thing is, guys, a lot of times things have to play out. How can you make your scenario the best possible even if something bad has to play out? 2, well, for one, you can start with these 10 commandments, having your divinity with source. Now, I've experienced in this lifetime, like pretty much the first half of my life was HE double hockey sticks, so I had a very long loop of hating life. Not necessarily hating life, but of going through the ringer, where I thought that was what life is. You want to see? You want to see these dusty crusties? Here's one. This is going to be like A through L. And then you got your M through Z out here. These are heavy. Anyways, yeah, fantastic. So, when it comes to trying to go through a karmic loop, for one, you want to learn your lessons. So, reflection and awareness. Awareness is key. Open the third mind's eye. Connection to divinity. I'd be praying no matter if you're going through the good or the bad, you should be praying every day, speaking these things out loud with vibrations, having your hands open wide out loud. You should be praying to Source every day. And you shouldn't actually be praying for outcomes to change. You should be praying for your vessel, your transformation, your soul tikkun corrections, for you to change, to be able to hold more divine light, to be able to create miracles in your life. Okay? My apologies. Here's the thing. I'm going to be saying a lot of these same like spiritual truths throughout all my classes, and you'll start to really ingrain and catch on and stuff. So just give yourself, time and patience. As far as religion, do I practice? Here's the thing about spirituality. It just is. It just is, guys. There's just oneness with Source. There's just you and your divinity. It just is. There's no even really label or religion, this or that. What I like to do is I like to take, yes, thank you, and that's where I was just leading into. What I like to take is there's a lot of foundational truths, a lot of good spiritual truths within some of these spiritual texts that we have been given from Source within each religion. For me, my main go-to is the Bible, but here's the thing, guys. There's a lot of spiritual truths in the Gita. There's still going to be spiritual truths in the Quran. There's going to be spiritual truths. Now, I'm not talking about taking everything literal, okay? Because that's not what this is about. You shouldn't be taking every single thing literal. It said to cut off my pinky toe, I did it. No, that's not. Y'all are living under a rock. These things were created, these old texts were created a long time ago for us to build upon, you guys. They weren't to be just truths throughout. We're growing in evolution, we're growing in consciousness, yet we need to have old dusty crusty from 12 million years ago scripture that we're like, yeah, this is the end all be all. No, our spiritual scripture is going to grow as well. Our spiritual truths in alignment with Source is going to grow as well. Nothing is stagnant. Anyone who says, oh, it's just this book and nothing else, that's not true. It's this book and this and that and. Thank you. Anything that you recognize in other people is also a truth you recognize in yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because what's in the heart comes out the mouth, so I appreciate that, and you're beautiful as well. Now, y'all hear me loud and clear though, so essentially, it's really important to, if you're going through a karmic loop, which, I don't wish that on my worst enemy, because it's literally living hell. That is what hell is a karmic loop on planet Earth here. It's the most dense energy you can be in, where you feel like you're drowning and barely above water, barely scraping by. I've been there, guys, and I was there for a very long time. It's part of the soul correction, and you look back and you're like, I got through it, and guess what? Would I change anything? There's some things I wish that were different, but do I really wish that? Because look who I am today. Look who you are today in the mirror after going through these things, rising above, choosing certainty of your divinity within Source, that you're always going to be taken care of no matter what darkness is trying to pull you. Okay? So, back to Genesis, basically it's portraying that the word has command and creative energy, emphasizing that all of the existence is rooted in God's voice, which is also our voice because we are fragments of God. Okay? Sustained by ongoing utterance. Okay? Now, one thing you can practice in your daily is, before I speak, you can think, okay, is this going to build light? Or is this going to fragment it? Right? Because we're eternal beings, we want to focus on the long term. We want to build light. Focusing on the short term, lower dimensional energies would say, Get your word in. Get your last word in. Don't let them treat you like that. So every single of my lives, I'm doing this every single weekday in the evenings, is essentially about growing your divinity and returning to self, understanding yourself on a deeper level to be able to go out and understand not only others, but show up differently, create miracles in your own lives and the lives of others as well. So everything that has to do with like the metaphysical, the 99% of what we cannot see, guys, because I will state this a million times, we can only see with our eyes here, our beautiful eyes, okay? We've got these two eyes to see 0.003 to 0.005% of reality. We got our mind's eye, our third mind's eye chakra, to be able to see the other 99%. Okay, so that is essentially living your best life is in stepping into your highest timeline, and this lifetime is kind of what this is about. Through understanding all the spiritual truths. And by the way, guys, the stuff that I'm teaching too is still quite limited. It's still quite primitive. Like, these are just things that I know for a fact when we apply these things, because I know from experience when we apply these truths, and as I also show up every day to keep making sure that I'm applying these truths, how my life has changed and how other people's lives will change as well. So, yeah, anytime we want to lean into complaining, or maybe you're just in a really dark space, or, we do have hormones, right, that can, men and women and everything in between, everyone has hormones. Whatever, you eat something that you shouldn't have ate, and then now you're, going off the deep end into negativity, or you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever. A really good way is to actually utilize words, affirmations, ask-firmations. Caution with what? You can utilize words to pull yourself out of those states as well. You can utilize frequency to pull yourself out of those states of negativity. All over YouTube, they got all different types of affirmations. You type in anything you're having issues with, they got affirmations for it. Exactly. Because we can actually, from a conscious space, we can, be aware of whatever shortcomings we might be having in that day and choose to act on them immediately. A lot of times for me, I go straight to source, which is what we should do, and I pray. If I'm feeling like I'm having bad thoughts from some third-party energy that's trying to siphon or something, I pray immediately. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm cutting that energetically right now, and I'm praying with source, and then boom, clarity of mentality, boom, able to focus on what I'm doing, building for higher purpose. So yeah, there's so many different ways that we can, take audit of ourselves and understand, okay, what do I need to help me realign? I'm kind of out of alignment here. Let me get back on track. It's okay, it happens. We're in the 3D. This is a very dense, heavy energy to be in. So we need to take audit every single day. We need to show up every single day. I don't recall what verse in the Bible, but it's essentially the verse that states, what we are fighting against is not anything of the flesh, it's of the darkness, dark energies. You have a bad thought enter your mind, it more than likely probably wasn't your thought. Even though it comes from your mind, it probably was actually injected by some third-party entity, whether it be a human being on planet Earth or some other dark entity. A lot of times, the darkness will try to slip in, these energies will try to slip in, guys. And it's our job to have discernment and be like, that's not me. Absolutely not. And to act upon those things immediately. Okay. So we'll finish up these last couple things within the third commandment. Aristotle's lens on the third commandment is honesty is the mean between deceit and brutal frankness, fostering trust, because it's truth. It's certainty. Now, you guys can recall in your own lives, how energetically sometimes you say something and you might be like, oh crap, I really wish I didn't say that. And again, like Kaden was saying, that is coming from a place of reacting. And the thing is, the first step is awareness. So if you're like, man, I do that all the time, like I'm such a horrible this and that, you're not horrible. But the awareness is the first step. The awareness of, can I hold my tongue? Since my tongue can create and destroy, can I hold my tongue and not react? We should never have to react if we're living in our authentic truth. Doesn't matter who comes by to give you a bad mouth, a bad evil mouth. Whether it be, from an email you read and open. You guys remember, anything that comes out the mouth is usually a direct reflection of how people feel about themselves. To include the people that they say that they love you and then they say something bad to you. That's how they feel about themselves. And you can see that and you can have compassion, because some of these dark things that are said are really dark. And that's how they feel about themselves. Right. You never have to react. And why again do we not have to react? Because we know we are eternal. And we know, whether it be in this life or the next, whatever is going on is going to be cleaned up by the divine intelligence. They'll clean up every act. Here's the thing about our soul ascensions and our consciousness ascensions, guys. And we're just wrapping this up. We'll start on 4 tomorrow. I'm glad we got through at least 2 commandments. Yeah, because yesterday we got through the first one. Anyways, so I got some real good juicy info for you guys on the other commandments too. But essentially what I was trying to talk about was, what was I trying to talk about? Oh yeah, essentially just everything is logged. Every detail. And doesn't mean that we can be all like inside having a sour energy and being like, haha, like the divine's gonna handle this, which is true. And believe me, like whatever the divine cooks up is way better than anything you could ever cook up. I'm telling you right meow. Way better. And a lot of times these things don't happen immediately. And that's why the 3D is like, oh, well, they're getting away with it. That's a lie. They're not ever, you, me, we, he, they, she, and they, them, and thee. We never get away with anything, guys. That's why we're on the path of being in alignment with eternity, knowing that, hey, just because I think I can get away with it in this life, guess what? You are paying it back, right? So when people are coming at you from lower vibrational energies, they're going to also experience that, whether it be in this lifetime or the next. They're going to experience exactly what they put out. You reap what you sow. It says that all over the Bible as well. You reap what you sow. I'm sure that's in other cultural proverbs too. You reap what you sow. That is the karma blanket. The tapestry of the Akashic records. I like to think of it as a tapestry, which it is technically. There's a tapestry. We're all strings on the tapestry of information and energetics playing out. So yeah, that's why you guys can know and have peace in your heart and do loving kindness meditations. And to the people in your life who are giving you HE double hockey sticks, you can send them loving kindness from a place of first sending loving kindness to yourself, from a place of wholeness within, of you are divine, you are loved, you always have been, you always will be, to include every dark soul. The dark souls, though, are just on the lower rung of the classes. Everyone is going to ascend. Everyone ascends at different rates. It's up to you to decide how quickly you would like to ascend on your soul, not only soul ascension, but also collective consciousness. Because we definitely are lagging in consciousness compared to other realms. And why are we lagging? Because we chose a path of religious dogma and control. We chose a path of fear and killing each other. We chose a path of, collectively, we chose this path. Guys, It's our job to change, to be the change, right, that we wish to see. Oh, you're so nice. That's that divine source, y'all. It ain't me. Anything I say is coming directly from the divine. And I also am held accountable for the things that I say. So I try to make sure that I'm on par. Some of these things are concepts that perhaps are hard to digest sometimes up front, like the whole Hitler concept. We can dive deeper into that other times as well. But, you know, these are things that we need to discuss because these are things that bring you peace and certainty, which is what we should have had all along. We should have not had control and dogma. So, yeah. But I appreciate you guys. Let's jump on tomorrow. I'm going to start doing classes at 8 since that makes a little bit more sense. Oh, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Every single weekday I will... That's awesome. I love to hear that, Ethan. Pacific Standard Time. Likewise. You guys, it would be so lame for me to speak to myself on these things, so you guys, I need you just as much as you're appreciating me. I need you probably more. Yeah, thank you for coming. Feel free to come any weekday. I'll be on probably a couple hours. From 8 to 10 has kind of usually been the thing. But yeah, tomorrow's going to be super juicy too. We're going to be doing the 4th commandment. And thank you so much. So kind. These are my chakra hearts. My bangs are literally driving me insane. Vanity. Y'all, but yeah, tomorrow's gonna be more juicy spiritual topics. The commandments are essentially a beautiful thing for us to expand on to bring about more divinity and miracles within our own lives. It'll be 8 p.m. and I'll have it on my tagged on my page, so just make sure you're following me on TikTok. I also put it up on my Facebook, Instagram. So all my platforms I'm J.A. Gracious. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. Let's do this again tomorrow, and I appreciate y'all, my people, souls. We out ya. Yeah, Pacific time, 8 p.m. Hasta la pasta mañana. We didn't pray. Should I do a quick prayer before we end? Okay. Okay. In the beginning. In the beginning. Okay, I'll close this out on prayer, guys. Let me just, I got, a kink in my neck, so let me just, roll my neck out real fast. My chakras were getting out of whack there. Okay, so let's do a quick prayer, close this out. Let me just think what I want to pray on real fast. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm a little tired, so if I misstep in any way, cut me some grace, guys. Divine Source, Divine Creator, Divine Word of all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. Thank you so much for the shared time that we can have together to discuss your spiritual truths and to grow upon the foundations you've already supplied us with. Please let us integrate these truths into our daily lives so that we may bring in more divine light, not only into our own lives, but to have a ripple effect into the community surrounding. Please also transform our vessels to be able to hold more divine light. That way we can therein hold more abundance and room for miracles that again not only affect and change our lives for eternity, but also affect and change the lives of everyone around us for eternity. Let us also stay focused on living from a place of the eternal game and rising above the 3D, tangible, fleeting game. Protect us from evil eye, evil tongue, evil mind, evil body. Siphon and cut off all energies. Transmute that which must be transmuted for the greater good. Keep us on the path that you have created for us, bringing in certainty and synchronicities to show us that we're on the right path. Let us also stay true to source, grounded in certainty, utilizing our tools of prayer and meditation to not only speak directly to you, but to also sit and to listen directly to you. That way we might build the kingdom of heaven on earth that you have always wanted us to have and build collectively and ascend consciously together. We pray these things in Jesus' name, in your name, amen. And so it is, and so it shall continue to be. Oh, snap, I almost fell asleep. I'm just kidding. Are y'all still awake? Amen. Alright, y'all. So, yeah, so there it is. We're going to be blessed beyond belief. Let's go. Appreciate y'all. Hasta la pasta mañana. Amen. Amen. That's what it's about. My fam, my soul fam right here. And we pray for obese Tony to step out of karmic patterns by learning and integrating his soul lessons or her soul lessons. Thank you guys. Have a fantastic evening. Amen. Amen.